Somewhere behind the gates of Clarence House, a father and son sat across from each other for the first time in 19 months. No cameras. No statement beforehand. Just 54 minutes, a locked door, and years of silence hanging in the air between them. That meeting didn't end the story. It may have started a new one. Because now, according to people close to the family, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are weighing something far bigger than a private visit. They're reportedly considering putting their regret in writing, a carefully worded public statement aimed directly at King Charles. Not a retraction. Not a walk back of everything they've said. But something else. Something insiders are calling a clear signal. A signal that, after 6 years of public warfare, the Sussexes might actually be serious about peace. Today, we're going inside that story. Where it came from, what it means, and why, even now, nobody on either side of the Atlantic is quite ready to say it's true. To understand why a single rumored statement could matter so much, you have to understand just how far this family has fallen, and how carefully every royal insider is now watching for a way back. The British monarchy runs on image. It always has. Centuries of tradition have taught the House of Windsor that unity is not just emotionally important. It's operationally important. A divided royal family threatens the very idea the institution sells to the public: stability, duty, continuity. Which is exactly why the rift between King Charles and his younger son has been so damaging. This isn't a private family disagreement playing out behind palace walls. It's been broadcast to hundreds of millions of people, one interview, one memoir, one documentary at a time. And at the center of it all are four people whose relationships now shape the mood of an entire institution: King Charles III, Queen Camilla, Prince William, and, thousands of miles away in California, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. So when word begins to circulate that the Sussexes might send the king a clear signal, it isn't just gossip. It's a potential turning point in one of the most closely watched family dramas in modern royal history. Let's rewind to understand exactly how we got here. The rift didn't begin with a bang. It built slowly, then all at once. In January 2020, Harry and Meghan announced they were stepping back as senior working royals, a decision the tabloids instantly nicknamed Megxit. They cited a desire for financial independence and, more pointedly, a need to protect their mental health from relentless media scrutiny. The palace was reportedly blindsided by the timing and the public nature of the announcement. Within months, the couple had relocated to North America, eventually settling into a $14 million estate in Montecito, California. For a while, the split seemed survivable, the kind of family estrangement that quietly heals with time and distance. Then came 2021, and the interview that changed everything. Sitting across from Oprah Winfrey, Harry and Meghan made a series of explosive allegations, including a claim that an unnamed member of the family had raised concerns about the skin color of their unborn son. Meghan described feeling suicidal during her time as a working royal. It was, by any measure, one of the most damaging pieces of television the modern monarchy had ever faced. The palace's public response was notably brief, just a handful of sentences, expressing that the family was saddened and that the issues raised, particularly around race, were concerning and would be addressed privately. But behind the scenes, the damage was profound. Then, in 2022, Queen Elizabeth II died. For a moment, grief seemed to pause hostilities. Harry and Meghan flew to Britain, stood alongside the family at public engagements, and there were quiet hopes of a thaw. That hope didn't last. In late 2022, Harry and Meghan released their 6-part Netflix documentary series, laying out their version of royal life in granular detail. Then, in January 2023, came the memoir that arguably did more damage than anything before it, Spare. The book didn't just criticize the institution. It made specific, personal claims about individual family members, including an allegation that Prince William had physically confronted Harry during a heated argument about Meghan. It painted King Charles, then newly crowned, as emotionally distant. It stripped away decades of curated royal mystique and replaced it with raw, uncomfortable detail. The fallout was immediate and severe. Harry and Meghan were asked to vacate Frogmore Cottage, their UK residence on the Windsor estate. A decision widely read as symbolic as much as practical. When King Charles's coronation took place in May 2023, Harry attended alone, seated several rows back from the family's central balcony group, while Meghan remained in California. William, by most accounts, has had minimal direct contact with his brother since. And there was one more wound that never fully closed: security. After stepping back from royal duties, Harry lost his automatic entitlement to UK government-funded protection. He challenged that decision in court, and lost. Harry has since described the outcome, in an interview with BBC News, as what he called an establishment stitch-up, a phrase that suggested he believed the institution itself had worked against him. By 2024, the relationship between Harry and his father appeared, to most outside observers, close to irreparable. Then two things happened that changed the temperature of the story. The first was King Charles's health. In February 2024, Buckingham Palace confirmed that the king had been diagnosed with a form of cancer, details of which were never fully disclosed publicly, in keeping with royal tradition around medical privacy. The announcement sent a wave of concern through Britain and reshaped how the public, and reportedly the family itself, thought about time, priorities, and unfinished business. For a father and son who hadn't spoken in years, a serious illness has a way of collapsing old arguments into something smaller. Sources close to the family have suggested that the king's diagnosis quietly reopened a door that both sides had, until then, treated as closed. By 2025, Charles's medical team reportedly moved his treatment into what was described as a precautionary phase. Not a declaration of full recovery, but a meaningful shift that gave the king, and those around him, renewed energy to address the parts of his life left unresolved. Family reconciliation, by several accounts, sat near the top of that list. The second development was more concrete, a face-to-face meeting. According to reports, Harry travelled to the UK and met his father privately at Clarence House, their first in-person conversation in roughly 19 months. The meeting reportedly lasted 54 minutes. There was no official palace statement confirming details, which is itself telling. Meetings the institution once publicized tend to come with photographs and carefully worded press releases. This one didn't. What made headlines almost as much as the meeting itself was who wasn't there. Prince William, according to multiple reports, chose not to attend or engage. Queen Camilla was also reportedly absent, with sources suggesting she had, in the words of one insider, no intention of taking part in the reconciliation effort at that stage. That detail matters. It tells us this isn't a story about the whole family suddenly reuniting. It's a story about one relationship, Charles and Harry, potentially inching forward, while other relationships within the family remain frozen exactly where they were. Around the same period, separate reports suggested Meghan briefly joined a phone call during one of these family conversations, described by sources as unexpectedly warm, even emotional. Whether that softened the king's guard or simply added a new layer of complexity to an already delicate situation depends entirely on which insider you ask. And that brings us to the story making headlines right now. The idea that Harry and Meghan are considering going a step further than a private visit or a phone call, by releasing an actual public statement. According to multiple entertainment and royal-focused outlets citing unnamed sources, the couple is said to be discussing the wording of a potential apology, not to walk back the substance of what they've said publicly since 2020, but to acknowledge, in their own words, the pain the last several years have caused the family. One source close to the situation put it this way: the goal wouldn't be to erase the past, but to show the king that his son and daughter-in-law understand exactly how far the rupture has gone, and that they're willing to make the first uncomfortable, public move to begin repairing it. It's worth pausing here and being precise about what we actually know. This has not been confirmed by Buckingham Palace, nor by Harry and Meghan's own representatives. There's no finalized statement, no confirmed timeline, no guarantee this ever happens at all. What we have is a pattern of insider reporting, consistent in its broad shape, but built on anonymous sourcing rather than official confirmation. Still, the reasoning behind why such a move would matter is worth understanding on its own terms. Royal commentators point out that words alone rarely repair 5 years of public allegations. Trust, once broken this visibly, tends to rebuild slowly. Through consistent, private behavior over time, not a single press release. But symbolism has always mattered enormously to this family. A public acknowledgement, even an imperfect one, would represent something the Sussexes have never really offered since 2020, an admission that their choices, regardless of their justification, carried real cost for the people on the other side of them. Predictably, the British press has reacted to even the possibility of an apology with intense interest and considerable skepticism. Tabloid outlets have run with the story enthusiastically, some framing it as an imminent, near-certain event. More measured royal correspondents have urged caution, noting that considering a statement and actually issuing one are very different things, and that similar reconciliation rumors have surfaced and fizzled multiple times since 2020. Public reaction on social media has split roughly along familiar lines. Supporters of the Sussexes see any move toward reconciliation as evidence of good faith, arguing that Harry and Meghan have consistently said they never wanted a permanent estrangement, only accountability. Critics counter that after years of interviews, a documentary, and a best-selling memoir detailing private family conflict, a short statement feels, to some, like too little repair for too much public damage. There's also a segment of the public, arguably the largest, that has simply grown fatigued. Years of on-again, off-again reconciliation stories have left many royal watchers reluctant to treat any single report as decisive, preferring to wait for actions, a joint public appearance, an official statement from the palace itself, rather than anonymous insider claims. That skepticism is, frankly, earned. This is not the first time a breakthrough has been reported in this relationship, and it likely won't be the last time such a report fails to fully materialize. To understand why this particular moment feels different to some royal watchers, it helps to step back and look at the mechanics of how the monarchy handles internal conflict. Historically, the royal family has treated family disputes as strictly private matters, to be managed quietly, resolved behind closed doors, and never confirmed or denied publicly unless absolutely necessary. That approach worked for generations, largely because the family controlled the flow of information about itself far more tightly than it does today. Harry and Meghan broke that model. By choosing to tell their story publicly, through interviews, documentary, and memoir, they effectively took the conflict out of the palace's traditional playbook. That's part of why any resolution now is so complicated. The institution's usual tools, quiet diplomacy, careful silence, don't fully work when the other party has already put so much on the public record. Royal commentators frequently point to King Charles's own approach to leadership as a relevant factor here. Since becoming monarch, Charles has been characterized by some observers as more emotionally direct than his mother, the late Queen, was in matters of family. His first speech as king notably included a public expression of love for Harry and Meghan, even as they were no longer working royals, a small but symbolically loaded gesture that suggested he wanted the door left open, even during the most difficult years of the rift. At the same time, Charles's health has undeniably reshaped his priorities. Monarchs, like anyone facing a serious diagnosis, often reassess what unfinished business matters most. For a king whose reign has already been defined partly by illness, resolving the most painful relationship in his own family may carry weight that goes well beyond politics or public image. Then there's Prince William, whose continued distance from his brother is arguably the most stubborn obstacle to any full family reconciliation. Where Charles may be willing to entertain a private meeting or even a written apology, William's reported reluctance suggests the rift runs on at least two separate tracks, father and son on one, brother and brother on another. Even if Charles and Harry move closer, there's no clear indication the same is happening, or will happen soon, between the brothers. That distinction matters enormously for anyone trying to predict what comes next. A reconciliation with the king does not automatically mean a reconciliation with the institution as a whole. So where does everything stand right now? As of the most recent reporting, no public statement from Harry and Meghan has been issued, and Buckingham Palace has made no official comment confirming any of these discussions. What exists publicly is a pattern. A private meeting at Clarence House, reports of a warm phone exchange involving Meghan, and now, insider claims that a carefully worded public gesture is being discussed internally. Camilla, according to multiple sources, remains notably uninvolved, with reporting suggesting she has little appetite to personally engage in the reconciliation effort. William, similarly, has shown no public sign of softening his own position. Harry's security situation also remains unresolved. The dispute over his UK protection status, one of the most tangible and legally significant points of conflict between him and the institution, hasn't been reported as settled, even amid these more personal signs of a thaw. That's an important detail, because it suggests that even if emotional reconciliation is happening, the practical and legal issues tied to the family's rift are moving on a much slower, separate timeline. In other words, this is a story still very much in progress. What we're watching, if the reports are accurate, is the early, fragile stage of a process, not its resolution. When you step back and look at everything together, a clearer picture starts to form. This isn't a story about a family suddenly healed. It's a story about incremental, uncertain movement, a private meeting here, a phone call there, and now, perhaps, the quiet consideration of a public gesture that might, or might not, ever see the light of day. King Charles's illness appears to have reshaped his sense of urgency. Harry, by multiple accounts, has shown genuine willingness to re-engage. But Camilla's reported distance and William's continued silence are reminders that reconciliation within a family this large, and this publicly scrutinized, rarely moves in a straight line. If Harry and Meghan do eventually release some form of public statement, it likely won't undo 6 years of public conflict overnight. But it could represent something the relationship has been missing since 2020, a signal, deliberately sent, that after everything, they're still willing to try. Whether the king, and the rest of the family, are ready to accept that signal is, for now, still an open question. If you found this breakdown helpful, hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel keep covering stories like this with the depth they deserve. Subscribe if you want to stay ahead of every twist in this ongoing royal story, because if there's one thing we've learned, it's that this family's next chapter is never far away. And I want to hear from you. Do you think Harry and Meghan should issue a public apology to King Charles? Or has too much already been said for words alone to repair it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.